This is day 2 of the November 96 7-day retreat in Springwater. In the opening talk, when the topic was sleep, and it was said it's nothing embarrassing or shameful, even though one may feel this way from training, to lie down, to go to sleep early during the day, whenever. And I also mentioned if one is wide awake, no need to strain to go to sleep. What I didn't talk about is what do we do when we get very sleepy during a round of sitting where we've agreed not to get up and go to our bedroom, out the door. And since it comes up in meetings, this topic of sleepiness, let me say a few words about it. What is sleepiness? This question can arise quite spontaneously as one is engaged in battling sleepiness, because that's what we usually do. We think we ought to stay awake. I'm talking right now during a round of sitting. And yet there's a strong force to go to sleep, close the eyes, doze off. So, if at such a moment the question, what is this state right now, arises, then there may be an infusion of new energy to look, not to think psychologically or physiologically what sleepiness is, although if this is what the mind needs to do, so be it. But what I'm talking about is, what is it this moment experientially? Directly sort of penetrating into this state, understanding it, seeing what all goes on, not just being sort of a blind victim of something that is occurring right here and can be examined. I still remember quite clearly the first time this occurred to me many years ago in late 60s or early 70s at the Rochester Zendo. Trying to keep myself awake beyond the regular hours, because this is what we were prodded or directed to do. It wasn't obligatory, but there was great pressure on us to stay up late into the night. And being, by training, an ambitious person, that's what I did. And yet felt so tired. So this question, when it arose, it brought with it some interest, which is immediately some energy to look, to wonder, and to see, to discover. The first thing discovered was visions of my mattress. And not just visions, but experiencing a strong pull, as though the mattress was made out of a magnet, to go there, or at least to go into the horizontal, out of this vertical, this aching vertical. And with these visions, the battle, not to think that way, not to feel that way. And I think whenever we really see a conflict going on, really see, I don't mean just think about it, that it shouldn't go on, or one side is right, the other is wrong, but see it. Then the conflict dissolves, and there is just the state of being, without conflict. Do you see what I mean? We're usually in conflict with most states that we find ourselves in. And that needs to be discerned very finely, subtly, so that the conflict with the state can cease. And what partly arouses the conflict is visions of states that are different from this, more desirable, more enticing, more satisfying. And that goes on automatically, as all of us can bear witness to. Imagining something pleasurable in the midst of pain. Something more exciting in the midst of boredom. Lying down and resting on a comfortable mattress in a warm sleeping bag, while this agony of sleepiness, these are the words, but something is going on, which is not being attended to. The mind slips into the visions of something else, away from what is, which is shunned or escaped from, because there's also a subtle assumption that we can't be with that. And the assumption comes from a lifelong habit of moving away from it, from displeasure, discomfort, pain. So what is it? Can that question arise at the right time? So that the mind, instead of fabricating visions and dwelling in those, in conflict with what is here, can let go of that and just examine what is here. Not verbally, not necessary. If words arise, that's all right. But it's here. It's us, this moment. And observable, feelable, hearable, touchable. In all simplicity. When the moment that conflict ends, being here, and for a moment no desire of being someplace else, because it is seen through as division and conflict. The moment that ends, if only for a moment, there's energy there to be. The energy that was tied up in the conflict is freed to just be openly, awarely here. No matter what the temporary state may be, and that has already changed. Because a state that is being resisted or battled feels entirely different from a physical state that is allowed to happen, to show itself, to take whatever space it needs temporarily. Nothing is forever. So the state changes in this attention given to it, and the energy increases. But not to expect it. It may not go this way. There may be continued conflict, and there can still be observation of that, taking note of it. Sometimes people tell me this, I see something, but it doesn't go away. It just keeps on going, even though I see it. What is seeing? of being. Being all there is, with no division, no pulling away, no resisting, no reason to resist. Because resistance itself is hindrance, unnecessary, habitual. Because it is so habitual, because resistance is so habitual, we're so used to it that we don't see it easily. We don't notice it easily. But it can come into awareness. The body flexing, tensing, mildly or strongly against what is there. The pain, the discomfort, the tiredness, that's how we started out. The fear, the fearful manifestations in the body from a thought that aroused the fear, a memory. One may not have noticed it, but the fear that the body now manifests an uncomfortable, maybe agonizing state. What is it? That what is it is crashes through all resistance. Resistance says, don't touch me, go away. Think of something else. Because obviously it doesn't say that. I'm just putting this to a little dramatic form. But that's how it expresses itself. Sort of like putting a shield around something that is entirely touchable, feelable. If only one can come upon this resistance without trying to bash it. Just be in touch with what goes on in this amazing human body. So many built-in devices that who is controlling them? We're not even aware of them. And yet we think we are. We are the owner of this body. So, how to get more subtly acquainted with it? It's a wonderful opportunity. Silent meditation. Because things are not always peaceful and serene. Maybe very rarely. I don't know, it's different for different people at different times. But most of the time there's some gnawing discomfort, wanting to get away from it. And here someone says, no, step right into it. With this opening question, what is this? And to find to one's amazement ever freshly that things and states are not what we think they are. The other thing I wanted to touch upon also has to do with an earlier talk, yesterday's talk, which I talked about authority. I did not go into what I've done more recently. Yesterday I forgot it. To go into the difference between being authoritarian and being authoritative. And someone brought this up in a meeting. I don't remember what she said verbatim. I wish I would. Probably can't repeat it as well. She says, don't deny it. You are an authority. You are for me and you are for others. And I need to hear from an authority. I need to be in the presence of one. For whatever reasons, we all can look for these reasons in ourselves. Needing to hear from one, needing to be in the presence of someone who talks clearly, with strength, with conviction, with passion. Can we call that being, since we're dealing in words, authoritative? And yet no need to become authoritarian in the process, which is a shift in just clearly presenting what is seen to be so, into using people to feel oneself as more important, more powerful, demanding obedience, devotion, all the accoutrements of a lot of authoritarianism. If there's really clarity in looking and examining and discovering, then it's clear that becoming authoritarian is falling back into blindness. Ancient habits of needing to have power, to feel better, maybe as a reaction to earlier times in one's life where one was the victim of someone else's authority, and now has come the time to pay back or to be what others were doing to us, to do this to us. This doesn't all go consciously, most of it not. Very often reflexively, although one can still get a glimpse of it at times, of this need. Somebody slighted me, and watching oneself slight that person as a payback. To notice, to learn about ourselves, even though, as it is reported very often, I know it for myself too, at times one may notice something and yet it keeps on going. The momentum to go with a habit at that instant is stronger than just stopping and looking. There's such desire for fulfillment of an unrequited drive. So one watches it, one watches going on with it. And learns that it brings no satisfaction. These kind of satisfactions sought out of reaction, needing to have something, needing to be something, they never really satisfy. They just are a trigger for more and more and more and more of the same. So I need to remember to make this clear in the talk on authority, so that there is not confusion arising in the mind, as though I'm contradicting myself, speaking. That's what sometimes people used to tell me, speak out of two sides of your mouth. On one hand you say no authority, on the other hand you come on so authoritatively. At that time we didn't use these words, we hadn't thought it through. I didn't quite know what to say, I felt a little bit guilty, but kept on going with the talk on authority. So, if any of this is not clear or gives rise to further questions, or one disagrees with it, please bring it to meetings, group or individual. That's one function of the meetings, to clarify, lay bare. Also, what is what is said in meetings, unless the person tells me to please not bring it up in a talk, it happens rarely, maybe 1 or 2 times in all the time I can think back. But please tell me if this is how you feel. It will not enter into a talk. But if you don't ask for that, these things that people say, that we talk about and look at together, do find their way into a talk. A talk in a retreat is a live affair involving all of us. This one person happens to formulate it all, put it together, and look at it again with a huge magnifying glass, which is really the function of awareness when applied to our moment-to-moment living and problems in living and relating. Awareness can be a beautiful magnifying glass to show it all up. So we can see ourselves in minute detail. But the magnifying glass does not judge. It does not blame, it does not find fault, or else it is not a clear magnifying glass. It just exposes, shows. So can we watch in our thinking this ancient theme of blame running off almost all the time, blaming oneself and blaming others. Finding fault with oneself, finding fault with others. We engage in it all the time. The media are engaged in it all the time. We have a compulsion, we feel that's what we have to do. Find the faulty one, the guilty one. Punish. Which is sort of a traffic pattern of thinking, avoiding looking at what really happens in human beings like you and me, not like just in them or just in me, in all of us. So, can the magnifying glass also show up this instant tendency to fault? See the momentum of it, the compulsion to go on with it, because there is some satisfaction and security connected with habits running. It's an amazing fact. Habits running to their short-term conclusions only to start up again bring satisfaction and some sense of security. Because we know that if our habits are seriously questioned, we may feel at a loss. But feeling at a loss is no reason to give up looking and wondering and discovering. Just to be able to live with the discomfort and feelings of insecurity that arise temporarily if a habitual pattern is interrupted or is questioned. To stay with the discomfort, just like we said earlier, staying with the tiredness, staying with the fear, and wondering what is it really, not just living in thoughts and assumptions about it. This is really what this work is all about, to step out of thinking about ourselves and each other into directly watching ourselves and each other profoundly. not just superficially, which happens a lot. But in that superficial watching are already rationalizations embedded. Well, this is human nature. This is how we are. Or subtle fears, not to look too closely. Acknowledge it, but not look closely. Really close looking is something entirely new. It is meditative. Meaning an inwardness of no resistance to what's there. A vulnerability that comes with no resistance. And the freedom to be vulnerable. Freedom to be vulnerable. Come what may, open, exposed, looking, attending to all these safety blankets wrapped around us, mostly consisting of thought and habit. You could say, well, it sounds all very good. I want to do it. Tell me how. How do I do that? Sometimes people say, I try to look, but I can't see anything. The moment I look at something, it disappears. Oh, that's okay when that happens. It means the running of the thought is replaced by looking. But one says, I wanted to understand something about myself. Well, we don't have to worry. It'll come back. We're so habitual. So, how do we watch? Or can we drop the how and just begin attending? We started yesterday, we can do it right now, the breathing. That's the thing closest, isn't it? Is it there? One may be surprised how long one didn't feel it because one was listening or thinking, looking. But there'll be a moment when, even though there's listening and thinking and looking, the breathing is there. Because it takes no effort, it takes no thought to listen. The listening and the breathing are one whole state of being. The listening and the breathing are not two separate processes meeting. It's one whole state of being. Breathing, talking, body sensations, fan blowing, maybe pain in the knees or the thighs, or feeling of well-being, and the words that are being talked. Can that all be here, now, as it actually is? The lighting up of the room. It's here, and the breathing is here. Maybe a reaction makes itself felt. People tell me, I so agreed with what you said in the talk, or one will say, I was so angry at what you said. Aroused anger. So can that be watched? Not analyzed. Then there's a wall of division. Because when the thought starts analyzing, we can't hear the words that are spoken anymore. Can only listen to one series of words at a time. Can't hear to two can't listen to two conversations thoroughly. Get a word here and get a word there, that can happen. But to take in the whole conversation can only be one at a time. So, as anger arises at something that is being said, just listen to it, to what the body manifests, the words that are sputtered out. That's what she thinks, but it isn't like that. This is how it is. To embrace the whole thing in attention. And is the breathing still there? Now a little bit more choppy, shorter breaths, because that is what happens with this phenomenon we call anger. Breathing gets shorter. Blood circulation changes, it may rise into the head. To watch it all. And from where do we watch, you may ask. We don't have to figure it out. It can happen. Attention happens to human beings unbeknownst to where it comes from or why it comes at this particular moment. We could think and theorize about it, but then we're no longer really attentive to breathing and maybe angering, or maybe the anger abating because the thoughts were not indulged in. The story was not embellished. That's what one can watch with consuming interest. Not how anger suddenly explodes. That happens very quickly. My ways were crossed. I didn't get my way. Or somebody did something that was so deeply ingrained in me, shouldn't be done, and I was punished for it, so somebody else does it. Anger arising. These are just a few reasons. Each one can find their own reason. Why did I explode at this moment? But the explosion having happened, it doesn't have to keep on going. It can deplode as quickly as it exploded by not thinking anymore about it, seeing it at a glance and not nourishing the storyline about it, which it is what usually happens. Thought running away with it, weaving the old, adding to the old fabric, weaving new threads into it, of what always happens to me, what they always do to me, how I'm taken advantage of, ripped off. Watch it with interest, which means sort of as if standing aside a bit from this fabric and observing it with amazement, weaving on and on, maybe over the next half hour or day, or month or year, maybe for years, keeping that fabric going. What somebody did to me or what the world is doing to me. Amazing. And really suffering from it, physically, emotionally, in our relationship. So, the next time anger arises, it can be sort of an alarm blinking. Watch it. What's going on? Not I must shut it off. That's not watching. But watching the narrative about me and my enemies or my this or that unfold again, and keeping the body in a state of excitement, irritation. But if we stick with watching it deeply, not just superficially and then thinking about it, having comments about it, silently watching, the question may bubble up all on its own. Why go on with this? What for? It doesn't bring anything except woe and pain and ruptured relationships. And if that thought is heard, then maybe it's clear one doesn't have to go with it. There's no reason. Now, I don't want to enter into areas right now where it's important for a person to express their anger, voice it to a therapist. People have actually told me who've come to retreats that for years they would burn with anger that they could not afford to burn with any other place but in a silent retreat until the thing burnt itself out. There are different situations for different people. I'm not the authority to tell people what to do. I'm suggesting things and open to the fact that things may be different for different people. In a limited sense, fundamentally it's all the same for all of us. The function of thought and emotion so intertwined. So intertwined, thought and emotion, memory and sadness, so intertwined that one may be at a loss of finding the me who is doing this. This is how we talk about it. I got sad, or I remember this. But it happens instantly. This is what we are, not somebody doing it. But remembrance evoking emotion, and emotion evoking more thoughts. Some of the thoughts spinning into narrative about what is happening to me. But where is that me, other than this ongoing pattern of reacting and experiencing? Confined, as it seems, to one organism, but that organism interconnected to all other organisms on this earth. I've sort of touched upon many things which will reoccur in the course of this retreat. What is this me, this I? It feels the owner of the body, the doer of the reaction, the rememberer, or the one who should know better. Maybe it'll pick up something in the listener, wondering, looking, discovering. Who knows? We'll end here for today.